after their remains were found in suitcases last month in
heart-shaped umbrella for the personal position of treasurer.
Show your love for Shikwanis West. Show your love for the UNC. Vote the Heart Team on Sunday, 18th September 2022 at the Charlieville Presbyterian School.
this program this evening is titled Dollars and Cents. It is meant to share some views on the true state of the economy. And this evening we have a very, I have to say, a very powerful panel already set and willing to go. And I know they are going to share some thoughts on some of the issues that are affecting us in Trinidad and Tobago at this time, also the region, and I know we will also touch on some of the international relations, because inevitably what happens on the global scale will trickle down at some levels and affect us here in Trinidad and Tobago. Every year, traditionally, before the budget and post-budget, we host these forums, and this year it is no different. I am very happy to have the cooperation of my colleague, Member of Parliament for Mayaro, MP Rushton Parray. He has decided that he will join me on this occasion. And I also have, before I get into introducing them one by one, I also have this evening, no strangers to radio and TV Jearlean, Dr. Bhushan Singh, who always takes time out from his very hectic schedule to join us. Mr. Richard Ramkisoon, tax consultant, accountant, and businessman of Shogunas, belongs to the Shogunas Chamber, also the president of the Central Cricket Sports Club, and he is also a good friend of mine. And a very special guest this evening, our very beloved, dearly beloved sister and deputy political leader of the United National Congress. I refer to none other than Senator the Honorable Jearlean John. So these are the persons who we will have speaking on various matters this evening. And I would like our technical team to, of course, they can give us a wide snapshot of our members who are here this evening. And so MP Parray, I say welcome to you. It is, of course, a pleasure to have MP Rushton Parray. MP Parray, of course, is, member of Parliament, but he's also businessman. He's a member of the business community in Mayaro. He's also someone who is very adept in energy matters. He's a process engineer, actually, by profession. So he has his own business in that regard. And I know that he will bring a wealth of a widespread, a vast span of experience to bear tonight in our program. MP, it is my pleasure to welcome you this evening.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm happy to be here, Dinesh.
Yes. Thank you, MP Parray. And I want to go to Dr. Bhushan Singh. Bhushan, of course, as I know, you have done a lot of programs here on radio and TV Jearlean, and I want to say Sitaram to you and welcome, of course.
Thank you very much.
And my good friend, I often joke with him that he is the shadow MP of Shogunas West, Mr. Richard Ramkisoon, but that is because he is always involved in almost every single activity that is going on in the community in Shogunas and environs, not only Shogunas West. And so, Richard, I want to thank you for coming on. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Dinesh, for including me in this esteemed panel. Thank you very much.
And I would now I have saved the best for last. My sister, someone who is always there to guide the younger ones in the United National Congress, just like the honorable political leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad Bisesa. She is also following in those footsteps. I know DPL John, sometimes we say JJ, sometimes we say DPL JJ, sometimes we say DPL John, but of course her true rank is Senator the Honorable Jearlean John, and I particularly want to thank her for coming on. I want to say welcome this evening, Senator John. It is my pleasure to welcome you on radio and TV Jearlean, and of course on this program, Dollars and Cents.
Thank you, MP. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get into the discussions, there are, of course, a lot of issues that continue to be very glaring in the media. You will see a lot of citizens' action taking place. It will also airing in media, more so on social media. You would notice that, when you drive, you see things happening in terms of infrastructure. You would visit the health sector, you would go to the health centers, the hospitals, as the case may be. You have your own personal, individual experiences. And so from time to time, you would stop and pay attention to certain things. And so when we have to deal with a program like this, the question is really, where do we start? And where, what areas do we say that we are going to tackle on a macro level and then get into the microeconomics of things and how it affects you. I would probably want to start, and I hope that the technical team has those pictures up. I thought maybe we could start with something that is very contemporary, and a reflection of contemporary affairs would be to look at what is in today's newspapers. So I hope the technical team, if they do have it, that we can show. This, of course, is today's Express, and this is something that we may want to touch upon as we get into the program. And this reflects a story, and it would have been aired. I think this happened yesterday before the U.S. Congress. And we have the Barbadian Prime Minister, Mia Mottley. She, of course, she has been doing a lot of work. She has been blazing a trail as a female regional leader, and she is setting an example for the rest of the Caribbean leaders and regional leaders to follow. And on this occasion, she, of course, our own Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley, and Minister of Energy and Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Stuart Young, accompanying Prime Minister Rowley. They would have accompanied Ms. Mottley on this particular trip, and she was addressing the Congress yesterday, and she was really talking about issues that the U.S., some of the legislative framework and procedural and regulatory framework that the United States have put in place to deal with money laundering. And of course, the question she was really aiming at or asking, rhetorically, I must say, and this is her bravery and her courage as a leader, is in pursuing money laundering and other illicit activities. Are you really pursuing procedure, or are you acting and ensuring that substance trumps procedure? So the question is whether are you, crippling the banking sector locally and crippling the ability of persons to access banking facilities locally because of some of the regulatory features that you have. So I want to go quickly along. I know we'll get into this some more. And of course, this I didn't want to come across as being biased to the Express, so let's bring in the Guardian. And this, of course, again, reflects Mia Mottley addressing the U.S. Congress yesterday. We will probably touch on some of this, that gas prices, what is happening with gas prices, ladies and gentlemen, and also oil prices. Experts warn of increasing food insecurity. Now, this is a topic that I know Ms. John and MP Parray, a lot of discussions have been taking place within the bosom of the United National Congress in terms of food security. And I don't want to go too fast, gentlemen. Technical team, of course, this is the Business Guardian, and they say a picture paints 1,000 words. With impending energy crisis, free advice for the government. And of course, I am sure MP Parray, we may be sharing some thoughts along these lines. Fix energy fiscal regime now, go after small pools of gas. And Richard and Dr. Bhushan, improve the ease of doing business. I have shared a lot of panel discussions with both of you where we have really spent a lot of time in the ease of doing business and how it affects foreign investors, how it affects the small and medium enterprises locally. So we could go on to the other picture now. Of course, this is a continuation of the Business Guardian. How do we get out of this crisis? And we have I don't want to portray any particular author, but Curtis Williams is one of those business commentators, and he does, in my humble opinion, he does a pretty good job in bringing the salient issues of the day to the front, to the front burner. And actually the beginning of this article, and we will get into it some more, he was actually talking about quoting things that he said in February last year. And really, I think what he was pointing to is really how far have we come. This is another one, urgent action could stave off natural gas crisis. And we have Kevin Ramrine, who former Minister of Energy as well, speaking and stuff. Let's go to the other picture. We will see some of the other improved ease of doing business. What has happened is that today's Business Guardian, what they were speaking about is some of the proposals put forward by the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber. So what they are saying and the proposals they have put forward, talking about the Trinidad and Tobago, the new revenue authority, talking about ease of doing business. There are a lot of other things that I recall, but we will get into the program. I don't know if we have any other pictures. Chambers wish for stability, and so I know we will get into this in the discussion. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but this is some of the headlines of the contemporary headlines, of course. So as we get into the program, that was just really to give a sort of media perspective, a reflection of what contemporary matters are engaging the country at this point in time, and we have chosen today papers to get the ball rolling. We, of course, amongst the panel, before coming into the studio, we were thinking about looking at different angles. And so what I would want to do, and I would want to crave the indulgence of our panel members, I would want to, of course, ask MP Parray to get the ball rolling. And MP Parray, I am thinking that maybe one of the issues that we can look at from your perspective, I know we have been hearing a lot of discussions concerning the energy sector. In fact, we have the said Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley, and Minister Stuart Young engaging in a lot of foreign travel. And, you know, that in itself has led to some discussion. But I want to give you open forum in terms of how you would like to approach at least the energy sector, to bring some thoughts on that, because that obviously is still, and it continues to be, the driving force in the economy. So I would want to ask you if you would, you know, seek your indulgence to get into that topic.
Sure. Thank you very much, MP. And again, good evening to your viewers and listeners, and good evening to the panel here. The challenges in the energy sector is no stranger to the citizens of this country. I think the United National Congress, I mean, I, as the MP for Mayaro, and in every budget debate, we raise these matters. We raise several matters on the energy sector. Stuart Young, as Minister of Energy, has made several claims over the years, and every time they make a claim, you know, we come and we trash it out and rubbish it, because clearly what they try to do a lot of spin to throw a lot of the rationale for where we are on the United National Congress, the People's Partnership, under the leadership of Kamala Prasad-Bissessar between 2010 and 2015. Now, I want to start from the point of 2017, when Minister Imbert, as Minister of Finance, came and he alluded to this uptick in gas, which he took the responsibility for. And, you know, they claim that, I think in his budget presentation, is that he could have seen clearly now and the country has made a turnaround. The fact of the matter, if Minister Ram Narayan, under the Prasad-Bissessar administration, did not make certain financial changes in the regulations and the contract arrangements for these energy companies, the incentive to do more exploration and drilling in 2013 would not have happened. That incentive to drill, now you have to remember, the window between drilling and production is between 5 to 7 years, right? So look at it from 2013. For 7 years, we got into 2017, right? And that gas came onto the market and saved us, basically. But from 2002 to 2010, under the Patrick Manning administration, there was no exploration. There was none. So there was no window for gas production between 2010 and 2015. It took the Prasad-Bissessar administration the requirement to find a new fiscal regime in the energy sector to incentivize these companies. And that is where I think the focus of this accelerated capital depreciation came in, where these energy companies saw, well, hey, we have an opportunity to invest a couple $2 billion in new fields, but rather than wait for 5 years to depreciate the capital assets, we got to do it in 1 year. So that incentive really caused the push to get the investments going that brought us the gas in 2017. The problem is that we should have never, in this country, stopped drilling. Now we have to remember this, it's a simple equation. We have high gas prices now, you know, showed $9.11 US. Now back in 1998, somewhere around there, gas prices were up to about $15 US per MMBTU. It's down to $9.11. But to produce more, you have to explore more. And when you explore more, you will drill more. And our drilling and rig time collapsed under this administration. So any new find today, from all the incentives that the minister has, he has done some tweaking to the fiscal regime about a month ago. But anything that happens within the next 12 months, the horizon is still set at 5 to 7 years. So who is to say that within 5 to 7 years, we're going to be back down to $1.50 per MMBTU? Right now, if this government had done the right things, now it's 7 years into the administration, so there's no way they can justifiably claim that the People's Partnership under Colonel Prasad Bisesa would have done something terribly wrong that have us here today. You have been in charge for 7 years. Now, where we are in terms of gas production, we require about 4 billion standard cubic feet of gas for our Point Lisa's facility and for our requirements. We are down right now to 2.5 billion standard cubic feet of gas a day. So we're still short about 1.5 billion standard cubic feet. That is a gap we have to fill. Now, mind you, before I said, any new find today has a window of 5 to 7 years before it comes into production. So that's an issue right there. We are at high gas prices now, but we are at low production, so it's not benefiting us in any way. Let's flip quickly to oil. We are down to about 59,000 barrels of oil per day. Of that amount, 58% or about 38,000 barrels of oil come from Heritage through their land-based partners, and the balance comes through the one or two marine-based providers that we have. Now, there is the question, why is there an issue when gas price, oil price, we're up to about $96 a barrel for oil. Why is there this conversation about the increase in fuel prices? We are getting more money for oil and so on. The problem is that Heritage is selling oil by the barrel, but we are buying refined products at high international prices. So whatever benefit that we are gaining at the higher oil price per barrel, it is being eroded at the fact that we are paying more for refined products. I mean, this government hit the killer button and collapsed an entire industry by shutting Petrotrin down without any sort of thought. And I mean, there's a conversation about the plant was rubbish to save somebody's friend. I don't know, but that is the matter. We are having to purchase fuel at very high international prices. So this is why the Business Guardian today, as I wrap up my bit of editorial, spoke about what do we do? What do we do to fix this matter? And they're on point. One, the fiscal regime has to be revisited to make marine exploration, give the better incentive, because the oil is in deep water. We need to incentivize these guys to go into deep water and find this oil. Capital is flying into Suriname and Guyana, it's passing us straight because our fiscal regimes are not in line with the expectation. Capital is coward, it's going to go where their money is welcome and they feel more comfortable. Two, the issue of incentivizing, the issue of the ease of doing business. That is something key. I know Doc will speak on that in a little bit as well. If it takes 1,000, I have the number here, it takes 1,543 days to close a contract in this country. That's 3 years or 4 years. That cannot work. And when you have some legislation you have companies who are coming to Trinidad and Tobago, but they are very concerned about intellectual property rights. They are concerned about cyber crime, cyber security. And we have laws that are making anchar in the parliament. It's not going anyway. When you put all these things together, these companies are not interested. Many of them not interested. New ones, new players. They prefer go to Guyana, go to Suriname, other jurisdictions. We need to fix those things. And it is not irreversible, but it has to start now. Good, sound decisions have to be made by the Prime Minister, the Minister of Energy, and they need to make good, sound decisions to get capital back into Trinidad and Tobago. And these are things that, probably I will raise as the discussion goes along. So I'd like to stop there and pass over to one of our colleagues.
So, ladies and gentlemen, of course you have been hearing pretty in-depth, but with some simplicity, an overview of the state of the energy sector. So, MP Parray, I want to thank you very much for that introduction. I know it will build as we move on in the program. I am thinking that, when I'm hearing MP Parray talking about energy in this way, I want to call in Dr. Bhushan Singh at this point And I will tell you, Dr. Bhushan, what is coming to my mind is Forex. I know when you talk energy and we hear all this talk about, where are we now, we will get into the details. Of course, we will ask MP Parray some further questions about the low production and the high prices and all of these things. What does that mean at the end of the day? Most people who follow it understand that, but I know in terms of Forex, this is something that is directly linked to what foreign investment we have and what is taking place right now in the country. So without me saying anything to prejudice your angle, let me just ask you to talk about the Forex situation in Trinidad and Tobago.
Thank you very much, Dinesh. The issue here with the foreign exchange is that right now we are in a deep foreign exchange crunch. There's a serious shortage of foreign exchange. Now there are two aspects to this. The lack of economic diversification, the over-dependence on the energy sector, and this issue of economic diversification, it has been bandied about. Once upon a time there was the issue, remember, you might recall, there was the 7 sectors, film and printing and packaging and, all of those things. And we didn't, what became of it, we never heard much of it after that. And the Trinidad and Tobago, we have moved to rely on the energy companies to provide the bulk of our foreign exchange. And how we get this foreign exchange? They sell oil and gas in US dollars. They bring back some of it. They sell it back to the government, to the banks here to get TT dollars to meet their operating expenditure. And with the crunch now in energy, as MP Parray is just speaking about our shortage in gas and oil. We have the shortage of foreign exchange, and it is affecting Trinidad and Tobago's ability to do business. And more so, it is a confidence problem as well. You have in the banking sector in Trinidad and Tobago, Trinidadians with US accounts. You have in excess of $5 billion US. There's people that, buy Forex and just have it in US accounts. And the reason for this, some of them might need it for business, some of them might need it for medical expenses and education and so on. But the bulk of it is actually people buying that Forex as a hedge because they have little confidence in Trinidad and Tobago dollar. So they are buying foreign exchange US dollar as a hedge. And that is $5 billion. That is not really being productive. That is just a hedge there. That's one. The manufacturing sector, we hear a lot about the manufacturing sector, but the truth of the matter is you can't shift the whole burden from energy to manufacturing sector and expect them to get up to speed to earn that amount of foreign exchange. We will never be able to compete with the likes of China and India and Malaysia and so on in manufacturing. We will not reach that stage. So we have to be realistic in how we go about this thing and earn foreign exchange. Then the whole issue about how we're going to deal with this problem. We have not fully explored the issue of import substitution, especially in the areas of food, right? Food production. Imagine right now we import root crops from Grenada. That is something that we were once self-sufficient in. We have to, things like avocados, avocas we call it, right? We have to import those things. Then the issue of renewable energy. I don't think we really have a clear policy on this renewable energy as yet. This is our main area that there's opportunity for. All of this sunlight that we have in Trinidad and Tobago is being wasted if we don't have a solid policy on renewable energy. A reduction in bureaucracy. Reduction in bureaucracy is an important factor. We spoke about the ease of doing business. It was mentioned earlier about the ease of doing business. A reduction in bureaucracy is important. One, to improve the competitiveness of local businesses, especially SMEs, and additionally, for companies that want to come into Trinidad and Tobago to do business, foreign direct investment, to be able to move forward. And we have we talk about how we deal with Forex and so on, you know, how we deal, and there's a lot of, you know, speculation about devaluation and this and that and thing. But when you look at it, before, I like to deal in, you know, empirical evidence. With the issue of devaluation, or if we allow the currency to drift out and so on, I like to deal it with empirical evidence. And I don't want to get too technical here, but there's something called the Marshall-Lerner condition, where we could examine empirically if a devaluation will help or not. Because for a devaluation to work, it must be sudden enough and large enough to cause a shift in behavior. But that in itself will unleash a plethora of problems for the rest of the economy. We import everything. We're dependent on this. And you showed the clip there with Barbados Prime Minister and dealing with the de-risking of banks, right, and her address to Congress. And all of this is really tied into the larger picture in the economy. We're talking about foreign exchange, and we're talking about a parallel system that is working. Foreign exchange might be difficult to come by in the official system. Is it difficult to come by in the unofficial system? We have reports of lots of businesses being forced to buy foreign exchange unofficially at rates of $8 or $9, right? So we have to find a way to bring that into the official system and to comprehensively deal with this whole foreign exchange issue. And I'll deal with it as we go along. I'll pass on to someone else now.
And thank you very much, Dr. Bhushan Singh.
Thank you very much.
For those who may not know, or some of you, I know you all know Bhushan. He's a household name with the Jagriti audience. And you can tell he's a lecturer at Arthur Jack, and these are things that he lectures on. And you could see that lecturer coming out in him tonight. So Bhushan, of course, we look forward to hearing more about some of these ideas and these concepts. I would like to ask Mr. Richard Ramkissoon, of course, to come in here. Richard, we have heard, we have spoken, we have got an overview of the energy sector. In that overview, we have heard MP Parray talk about some 1,500 days or 1,300 days being the average time for, you know, concluding a contract. We're talking about ease of doing business. We can talk about whether they are linked and how they are linked and really what is the problems with the system. Bhushan, of course, talking about Forex. I know that we have a situation right now where the ease of business, and I hope that this will probably, you know, give some leeway to you, as I know you are very passionate about small and medium enterprise, because time and again on this program, having other parallel programs and similar type programs like this, you have been very passionate about championing the cause of small and medium enterprise and businesses and the ease of doing business. So I want to give you the floor now to give an overview of how you see things, the true state of the economy in Trinidad and Tobago now.
Thank you, Dinesh. You know, I want to raise a hornet's nest here tonight, and I want to call SMEs the bastard child of this present government. As you said, I'm passionate about it because I'm a SME owner, and I live this every single day, these concepts every day, right? And just for the viewing public, just to let you know what an SME is, right? An SME has between 3 to 25, it is carded as 3 to 25 employees. Their sales are from 250,000 to 5 million, right? As the small, then the medium is where you go from 26 to 50, and you have a sale from 5 million to 10 million, just to bring it into context so we'll know what we're dealing with, right? A lot of economic pundits will say that the engine of growth of any economy and the catalyst for socio and economic transformation is SMEs. And what we find out is that a lot of governments and a lot of countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, are really not paying attention to that sector of the economy. And that sector of the economy is so important. When you look at businesses that register, 25,000 of those businesses, when they are registered, 90% are SMEs. So that alone tells you how much SMEs existing in this country, right? We are not paying attention to it. In the retail sector, it's about 60%. Personal services, 16%. Real estate and insurance, 11%. In the construction industry, 6%. Right? And despite all this diversity and involvement of the SME sector, we are not paying attention to the SMEs. And I will, as I go along, we will see why we are not paying attention to it. Right? When you look at the SMEs in the reports that came, the contribution to GDP is 28%. They employ over 200,000 employees. That is a big chunk of small Trinidad and Tobago of 1.4 million people. So we have to pay attention to them, right? And what we find happening is that a lot of SMEs are struggling. I think over the last 2 years, over 6,000 SMEs have closed their doors. When you drive along the highway going to south, and you look at all those billboards, a lot of the billboards are empty. Pay attention to it, and those are the signs that will tell you what is happening with our economic situation in this country. You drive along the Carney Savannah Road where my business is located, and a number of doors have shut. And they have shut for a number of reasons, right? They don't have access. They are having a lot of problems. Bhushan mentioned it. If you are an importer, you cannot get foreign exchange, especially if you're an SME. The larger businesses, when they hit the queue, they get all the foreign exchange. The small man has to go to the man down the road and buy for $8 or $9. When you buy that and you send it up the road, and it comes back down here, the goods come back down here, the price of the goods is uncompetitive. You can't compete, because the bigger businesses now are doing every single thing that the SMEs are doing. They are actually pushing the SMEs out of business. And we have to look at those things, right? SMEs are encountering on a daily basis heavy cash flow issues. And I would advise the government to look at that. They are saying that they're giving the SMEs an opportunity to access a loan, an interest-free loan. But as a business consultant, many of my clients try to access that. And the rigorous and the type of documentation you have to produce for a small business that has 3 and 4 employees, audited accounts that cost between $15,000 and $20,000. Why are you putting businesses under this pressure? You have to be able to accommodate them, include them, try to, and in another forum I suggested that, okay, if you want documentations, why don't you ask for 3 years tax return? 3 years tax return, a tax clearance or a VAT clearance, and accommodate these people. NITCO is the same thing. NITCO is saying that they're giving a grant of $20,000 to SMEs, but try to access it. It is a heavily burdened exercise. It's problematic. When we look at SMEs trying to get contracts, it is a difficult scenario, because one of the things that I have to get is an NIB clearance, a VAT clearance, and a tax clearance. We are talking about ease of doing business and improving in digitalization. That is not happening among SMEs. You have to take a form, fill it out, and drop it in a box at the Inland Revenue. And it takes more than 2 to 3 weeks. And the slightest little error or mistake you make, they refuse it and they don't contact you. Somewhere down the line, a clerk might call you and say, hey, we have a problem with your form. By that time, contract gone, you lost everything. It's not happening. And those are the practical aspects of what is happening with SMEs. The SMEs are crying out for help. And somewhere along the line, you're not seeing any type of assistance developing or coming on board. Okay. Especially along the ease of doing business, which we will delve into in more detail later on, the access to foreign exchange. When we look at accessibility to markets, if you manufacturing, let me say Windows, for example, and you want to go down the islands or go to Guyana or somewhere with your product, we are not seeing anybody developing accessibility to markets to those economies, those countries. And it's something that we have to look at, right? If we are saying that, and when you look at the empirical data, it is there that the contribution to SMEs to our economy, 200,000 employees, right, earning foreign exchange. Why are you not putting things in place to help develop these small businesses? And in fact, when these businesses close, you're seeing 3-5 people on the breadline. How are they going to survive? Single mothers, setting up all kind of, all in Price Plaza, Shogunas, have a sign in their hand and saying, please help, I have a child. That is so hurtful, it's unbelievable. The powers that be are not seeing those things. And there is a reason, there's a ripple effect. The ripple effect is that you are not taking care of the businesses, the smaller medium-sized enterprises that employ these people, because these people are not heavily educated. They are sales clerks. They are laborers, right, trying to learn a trade. And that is the raw fact that is affecting the majority of the citizens in this country. Drive around and you will see. I like to drive and watch because it helps me understand what is happening in this economy, Dinesh. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I know maybe, I hope time will permit us to get into some of the spill-offs then from what you have raised. Liquidity in the system, some may say excess liquidity in the system, the role of local banking sector, how, is it that they are helping persons, and we will get into some of those things hopefully. But before we get the cross-talk and the discussion opened up, I would like, of course, to ask Senator John to come in at this stage. Senator John is a special guest here this evening, so she has full ambit to basically dive in any direction she wants to. And of course, I would hope that with her wealth of experience, Senator John, that you would basically treat with it also from a governance level as well, in terms of really in a system of governance. Are we really getting the kind of representation? We do expect that a government will not get into people's personal banking details. We do not expect them to get into, as we would commonly say in local parlance, bedroom details. But we would expect that the government can set the right conditions, the right atmosphere that is conducive towards equalizing the playing field and allowing persons, SMEs, those who are seeking to come in, foreign investors, concluding contracts, all that we have heard, the availability of Forex, all of these things. But I'm saying that in the grand scheme of the discussion, that whether or not the government is doing what is expected of it. So, Senator John, I hand over to you.
Thank you so much. Well, I went to the political school. So, the governance is I understand, but in terms of professionally, I'm a chartered management accountant and a chartered accountant, and I'm specialized in international trade and finance. Not only from the theory standpoint, but as a practitioner, I've run big systems and I've done startups and launched new products that have been successful and so on in the marketplace. So the language of businesses is really my language, quite frankly, and I understand what my colleague here is saying, and of course all the other panelists here. Now, if you have to look at it from a governance standpoint, you're right. A government has to create the facilitatory environment. But what does that mean? Part of that is this ease of doing business, this elusive thing that we are talking about. That just means step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. Look at how long we are here. It takes 12 to 24 hours to clear something in Singapore. It might take you 3 days to get it in your hand. But you try to get something coming in through airports, it takes 5 days in Miami, and then 2 weeks at the borders here to get it. And that sometimes, as we say, a little widget, because you have these small businesses trying to fix a computer, fix a phone, fix a something. When this government came into office, what was the first thing they did? They put a 7% up on that. So it just killed. I remember there was a guy I had who was my career, do my little banking and so on. He immediately said, Ms. John, I used to fix little computers and a washing machine. I can't do it anymore because he did it real time. So as you put in the little order, he put it away in Amazon and what have you. He gets his thing, but it starts at a 7% right away. So he, just as you've been saying, he became uncompetitive on the basis of time and the cost. He just couldn't compete. So you're shutting these people out of the market. The other thing is, we have a government that is visionless. Now, okay, no government is perfect, but at least when you look around the house, when people vote in a new government, you want to say, okay, they want them to change course. But what does that mean? A country is a big boat that you have to turn from about 5 miles out in the sea, and you can't just come and, what they did is effectively come in and shut everything down instead of doing investigation. But if you want to do that, run on 2 parallel tracks. You have to move whilst you do whatever you want to dig up and you sort of foolishness. So they shut the country down, and that has really hurt this country. And that is why 7 years down the road, we have these kind of headlines today, where it's a crisis, and we really need to give Curtis Williams the highest honor that this country has to give, quite frankly, because he has been coming out there and flagging this thing, because we have this one-trick pony called oil and gas. that we should have been moving away from. I've been studying, somebody brought to my attention about a month ago, Rwanda, because I like to look at these case studies. I remember in 2016 is when the great Saudi Arabia now put out Vision 2030. But it's a roadmap. I mean, when Mr. Manning did Vision 2020, I wasn't a part of that, and I was jealous. You know why I was jealous? Because it was a roadmap. Do something, do anything, but put some markers along the road that we can measure. So Saudi was in 2016. I see Rwanda, who had this big thing in 1994, genocide, 800 people dead in 100 days. But you know what? They're calling them now the Singapore of Africa. Can you imagine that? Because they are growing at 7% per annum. In 2018, before they canceled this ease of doing business thing, you know, the ranking, yep. they kind of suspended it. They were 29 in that queue. And Africa, 29 coming out of what do you call it, this genocide and so on. So people have, and of that, a certain percent, maybe about 30% of the business they did just now. They attracted over $2 billion US in investment, and out of that, 26% or thereabout was for the export market. So we have in talking very quickly about this, the Forex that comes in. We are negative balance of payment economy, right? Where we just buy and we spend more than we are earning. And that should be the red light for the government. All this thing about food security, you have the president of Guyana coming in this one, that one. I mean, come on, it's all a joke, because Dr. Rowley should have sat here after he comes out, sit in Queen's Park, Savannah, seeing people to get this agriculture thing going. Why? Because even if we could just feed ourselves, it means that is money you wouldn't pay. Because if you go into any other Massey stores, man, you could find anything you could find in a Tesco. You're finding everything there. So it means that Forex is being eaten up, as I say, by the fellas who big and they first in the queue. So we have a real problem with that. And then, of course, as we said, that ease of doing business, what does it mean? We are scaring away investors, because when they're coming in here, they don't know what Motley was doing yesterday. Was a fantastic job, and Dr. Rowley really shouldn't be there. I saw the Express, sorry, the Express picture with him and Stuart Young looking important. Doing what? That picture should have been just me and Motley alone. She did a fantastic job in that Congress. I don't know where it will go, but that the risking of banks, meaning you can't have the corresponding banks abroad in terms of doing business, and then you try to open an account here. Even the other day when they were trying to change out some of that money, them government always on some lie and nonsense. People already is going up with their little susu money, and bank clerks who that susu money sent to school, pretending they don't know where is that susu. You understand? So that buying car and putting on a room and so on. So we have a set of foolishness. That de-risking is a major thing, because investors coming in here, it will take them must see half a year to get an account set up in here. Who's sitting around waiting for that? They are going where their money is welcome, just as MP Parray was saying. Dr. Rowley, and the last one, he himself recognized, he said, exploration money. Not they're waiting, you know, sit down waiting. It's competitive in terms of who is a hustle. You know, so if it is, we are not willing to put in the necessary, what do you call it, concessions, nobody will come to us. They're not waiting there for us. All over the world, I've seen the Prime Minister of England say she going out, or also Liz Truss, as soon as she came in, she said, I going back out there, you know, I go in and drill. You understand? So that money, and she had the Exxon and all them big fellas sit down inside of London, they waiting. You think they're coming quite down here, taking a plane, right? They don't have time for that. So basically, I hope I could have kind of weave it all together.
Of course, and we will return to Senator John. What I would like to do is, as we open it up, and for the benefit of viewers and listeners, one thing we try to do, you know, on these programs, of course, is we try, as we discuss macroeconomic policies and issues and some of the terminology, we try to break it down so that those outside will understand what it is. And even if they are not able to capture fully what it means, they will understand what it translates to them on a day-to-day basis. Higher food prices, increased gas prices, whether it means, you know, if they go to open an account in the bank, it is going to mean, you know, more hassle for them. They have to produce more documentation, etc., etc. So we will try our best, and I know the panel will be most willing to assist in this regard. I go back to MP Parray. In terms, I know you ended off by saying that what is needed in the energy sector would be sound decisions. I know that, you know, some of just to recap a little bit, and I hope I do justice as well to recapping some of the salient things you were pointing to. One, that you would have had some sound decision making in the Kamla Prasad-Bisesa administration, 2010 to 2015. And you spoke about, you know, roughly on average a 5 to 7 year turnaround time. So what rewards we are actually seeing now was as a result of the incentives that were initiated under her administration. That is number one. Number two, in terms of the incentives, to me, what I hear as a really worn-out cliche from Minister Young and Minister Imbert is that year after year they criticize that the partnership was too liberal with the incentives with foreign investors in the energy sector. And I think that is something maybe you will want to correct me if I'm wrong in terms of how I interpret their continuing bashing of the partnership regime 2010 to 2015, and of course now the UNC with the proposals that it is always putting forward in the parliament. One of the things you also mentioned is, yes, look where we are now. You have a big iron stockpile in Pointe-à-Pierre, and that, Petrotrin, and what has happened is that now you are talking about increased gas prices, increased oil prices, but really and truly we're talking low production. So we really are not benefiting from anything that resembles an oil boom or a gas boom, as the case may be. So I want to ask you, in terms of moving forward, some of the decision making that really this government is failing with respect to, and where we should be going, maybe you can take us in that direction.
Well, definitely. One of the things that I read, and I mean, Kevin has been talking about this for many, many years, is that we need to go into deep water. We have to go in deep waters. We have to incentivize the foreign multinationals adequately to get them into deep waters. That's the first thing. Now, there's a lot of smaller pockets of oil and gas sitting both in the marine blocks and on land. Now, Minister Imbert 2 years ago, he tried to interfere with the SPTs, Supplemental Petroleum Taxes, to carry it up to about $75. But the window he gave for that was, I think, about 2 years. The trick is, if you want a touchstone or one of these smaller companies like the Novo, one of them, to do some exploration on land or in some of the smaller marine blocks. Sorry, this STP was for land-based operations only, sorry. But if the window from drilling to production is 3 to 5 years, that STP arrangement wouldn't have been an incentive in any event. So that's the first thing. We have to incentivize them to look at small blocks, small pockets of oil and gas. And when you do that, smaller companies who can operate at marginal cost can go after these pockets. Look at what Touchstone is doing. Touchstone is a land-based operator. They've been doing extremely well. Their share prices on the London Stock Exchange has been, skyrocketing because of what they've been doing here in Trinidad. They are going to be putting a little over 200 million standard cubic feet of gas into our systems probably early next year, because they understand NGC is probably very, very close to completing the gas line to them. There are a lot of small pockets. If we can get more touchstones to get inside of those areas, inside of those blocks, and I understand Heritage has the ownership of hundreds of thousands of acres inside those blocks. They need to partner with small operators, get those small pockets going. Now, the other thing in terms of the incentives, longer period, I remember Norman Christie, and this was public, he made a public statement on this before he left as president of BP. And he said, well, look, all this harbar about, the foreign multinationals took advantage of that accelerated capital depreciation, and the country lost. He says that's a fallacy. He says because what had happened, that incentive got multinational companies to invest in exploration and new drilling. But by the time they came around to benefit from the depreciation, oil prices collapsed. So there was no money to be made. So there was no depreciation to put against the money that you made. So in his view, the country benefited tremendously. They got corporations to invest money with the hope that they would have got back some depreciation, because the oil prices collapsed. The country benefited, the multinational companies did not. So this fallacy about, we gave away the patrimony and so on is nonsense. And the fact is that we did something under the partnership between 2010 and 2015 was to get back exploration and drilling after a 10-year lapse. Prime Minister Manning was so interested in just milling the existing gas operations, moving from train 1 to train 4, that new exploration wasn't part of the conversation. It was only in 2012, 2013 that the whole incentive to go and explore, find new drilling, got us that gas in 2017. And, that is something that we have to keep focusing on. When you look at and I mean, I just want to touch quickly on something Senator John had said. She used the example of Rwanda. Rwanda has a space agency today. They moved from genocide and starvation to sending satellites into space today. They are providing their own internet through satellite communication for their space as well. But Rwanda was also very instrumental in forming a system by which they moved their ease of doing business as well. They formed a unit many years ago to assist. And what they did, they put the agencies under one roof to get your business going, to get banking, to get your permissions, your permits, and so on. They put all these people under one roof, and they were able to move their investments, their investors, their local investors into their space very quickly. There is one example. When the partnership was in government, right now it takes 20 years to get a lease for agricultural land. 20, 30 years. I mean, people die and the children have to turn up to get the lease and so on. But there was an IDB loan in 2011 or 2012 for about $50 million that was received by the partnership to put a system in place just like what Rwanda did. Bring all the agencies under one umbrella. And you had State Land, Commission of State Land, Lands and Surveys, the Legal Department, Commission of State Land. And within about, I think it was about 6 months, they processed over 1,000 certificates. And as soon as the money dried up, the system collapsed again. So it can be done, getting the ease of doing business. But the problem is you need to form these systems where you have all the agencies, the state that is responsible for these things, get them under one roof. So you don't have this back and forth for months and delay. Look, I have people in my area who are complaining that they have plans that are stuck in tongue and country 4 years, 5 years. Now, any smart government understands that construction is one way of pushing and driving the economy. Let me expedite the 6,000 plans that are sitting in tongue and country. Get them expedited, get them outside there, and have all these young professionals go and get their home mortgage, bank loans, and use up that $8 or $9 billion in liquidity in the commercial banks. And we can start driving the economy from what it is. But we have a government that, as Senator John said, that is visionless. They're not imaginative, they're not creative. And we need to be an idea-driven society. And we've lost that. From the time administration changed, Senator John talked about, they stabbed us with these audits. I like to explain it as Trinidad and Tobago was at 36,000 feet, a 747, flying high on a good trajectory, good altitude. All of a sudden, the pilots get instruction, turn off the engines. So we audited. And the plane started to lose altitude. And we ended up today, 7 years down the road, in a position that we are going to find it very difficult to turn those engines back on now and gain back to where we were. And that is the problem. This government, this administration ran government in reverse. They keep looking at the rearview mirror for years rather than looking forward. So this is where our challenges are. And always remember, our GDP has always and it will always be tied to energy production. When energy production is low, our GDP is going to collapse. And this is why diversification, as Doc had said, is critical. And I mean, in 2015, they chastised us in the parliament. Oh, we're talking about diversification. What did we do and what did we do? It's 7 years after. 7 years after, what have you done in 7 years? If you or anybody, any of your listeners, could identify one project in 7 years that has brought in substantial foreign currency as a diversification product, well, I will be surprised and I will eat my words today. But nothing has been done in 7 years. The one business that we were extremely good at, we have the best sheltered marine facility in the Caribbean. That's up in Chagarama, sir. But yet, the best boating company in the world pass us straight and go on Guyana and set up shop. Why? As Senator John said, we are no longer attractive for whatever reason. Ease of doing business, the crime situation. We are not attractive to foreign investors. We have the best shelter in the Caribbean, but these people go on Guyana. That says something huge, something big. about how we are seen in the international world. And just final comment on that, we have moved from what the LA Times had called us, Trinidad and Tobago, as a tiger in a sea of pussycats. Look at where we are today.
I thought you were going to turn phrase on us. But you held back, okay. Thank you, MP Parray. I want to ask Richard to come in here, of course. Richard, I mean, in terms of the ease of doing business, we have heard some of the concerns even coming from constituents of Mayaro. I want to know if you would care to share some of, the SMEs. I mean, this is what directly affects SMEs as well, and if you care to expand on this at this point in time.
Yeah, I would like to expand on it, but I just want to touch on something that MP Parray spoke about earlier. In terms of our exports, the majority of 86% of our exports are really petrochemical based. And if you do analysis of it, 34% is gas, 20% is refined petroleum, 15% is ammonia, 9% is acrylic alcoholics, and 8% is crude oil, crude petroleum. The government has done nothing to diversify and try to get we away from this. And this is also affecting our foreign exchange, because once the price of oil is down, we're not doing any massive foreign exchange, right? And in terms of the ease of doing business, Dinesh, I just want to touch on one point here that for the viewers to understand where we are at. In 2012, we were at 63 ranked. We moved to 66. 2014, we were at 85. Then we went to, in 2016, 96, 102. 2018, 105. And now we are higher than that right now. Now, I mean, this is statistics, raw data that is coming from the economists on them. Isn't the government observing that? Nobody at the power, nobody is looking at these things, the Minister of Finance. Why are we going backwards, right? We are in a terrible position. And in terms of and this is why I will touch on the ease of doing business now, just to show how difficult it is to do business in Trinidad and Tobago. The banks require all SMEs, or most companies, on a yearly basis to provide annual returns, to provide Form 45s, which is beneficial ownership. Try getting one in 1 day or 2 days or a week from the Registrar General. That is a catastrophe by itself. And what you find happening is that the companies are losing. Remember, you have to produce these things to support their facilities with these institutions. And these institutions, and I made a call to them, they are aware that what are the problems in getting these documents. And yet they are putting pressure on the businesses to produce. I want it in 1 week. I want it in 3 days. You're going to lose your overdraft. I'm going to shut down your overdraft. Why is that? Why are we operating along these lines? I mean, I might make a statement here, I don't know. It might be, controversial. But I don't think banks are really interested in giving out loans and earning interest. Because when you look at your bank statement and look at all the different charges, they are making billions of dollars in those charges. They don't need to give you a loan.
Well, if I could just banks make money by two means. The first is by the spread, the interest rate spread, and the other is by off-balance sheet activities and fees.
Exactly.
Off-balance sheet activities, and that accounts for a significant level of profits.
Exactly. Even to get a National Insurance Board clearance certificate, which is so essential for small companies who are lobbying and tendering for contracts. It's difficult. You have to go in, it's so informal, so impersonal. You have to go in, drop a form, you're not speaking to anybody. Then they might reply to you and call you, and then you have to follow up on that. That time you don't lose the contract already.
But the issue of tax refunds is also a major VAT and tax refunds.
Well, I was not going to touch on that. That is a major cash flow issue that is affecting businesses. My understanding is that there are over $7 billion outstanding there. And when we look at the jet to the GDP ratio, right, is about 85. But that does not include monies that is owed to contractors, the monies that is owed to legitimate businessmen in terms of funds, that carry up to 90-something or close to 100. So how are we going to survive? It's a difficult scenario, right? I spoke about the tax clearances. right? And those are practical issues, and I like to talk about the practical, not the real hypothetical issues. I like to talk about the practical issues that affect the small man, the day-to-day operations of businesses, because that is where the crunch is. That is, those people need help. Those are the people who could spark the economy, could generate the economy. And you know, it is amazing to me that since 2015 to now, when you watch the policies, the fiscal policies of this government, it is very contractionary. Everything that they are doing, they are raising taxes. In 2015, the business levy was 0.1, 0.2%, and the green fund was 0.1%. As they came into office in 2016, it went straight to 0.6 and 0.3. That has strangled, literally strangled, the supermarkets in this country and the gas stations.
Small market.
The small man, it has strangled them. Some of them are out of business because their tax liability increased so drastically when you do the maths. It's unbelievable, right? The tax liability now is not about net profit, but it's about sales. And that has strangled businesses. I know a lot of people have been calling for that to be reduced for small and SMEs, but that is not happening. The corporation tax, and next contractionary issue. That thing went from 25%, 30% under $1 million, now 35%. How are you encouraging businesses to grow? Right? The small businesses cannot afford those things. Especially a man who's selling $1 million and $1.5 million. He still have expenses, you know. You know, it have some people when you're doing business, look at what you sell, the total income, and say, I'm making real money.
They're looking at net.
But when you minus all the expenses and all the cost, the man making 50,000, if he makes so much, you know. And this government is looking at that as the total sales, as the money you're making, right? And I mean, I personally think that they have to relook at this VAT system because the government is not paying the refunds as they should be paying. And maybe look at a system where, like a sales tax or something, where nobody has to account for anything. No minus, no add. Charge me a flat 6% or 5%, and I'll take that and do all I want with it. You know, so we have to look at all those things that are affecting all these small businesses.
You see, another important point is that when you hold back SMEs VAT refund or tax refund, they are paying overdraft interest. And that overdraft interest is significant.
And the government getting a tax-free loan, an interest-free loan.
And you know, something I really didn't want to mention, but that just by not paying refunds, right, is causing businesses to make certain type of decisions that they should be making in terms of how because they know they're not getting any refunds. So how are we going to deal with that? And they're making certain financial decisions and certain tax decisions that is not in the best interest. So the government is also losing cash flow. Because these businesses now are starting to run their own cash flow system now. Right? And it's a terrible situation. We have to look at those things. Right? And I am really, dealing with the inland revenue is a real difficulty right now. Tax clearances, VAT clearances, real difficult. And it is impersonal again. They are not seeing the taxpayers. Taxpayer walks in, you get scanned and they drop a thing in the box. The head of the BIR had to look at that, the finance minister. And I just want to touch on before I close the Revenue Authority. For years I've been speaking about the Revenue Authority. The most important people, or the most important decision they have to make is how they're going to deal with the employees of the Inland Revenue Division and the Custom Division. I haven't seen when Watson Duke was president or the present president speak about having a meeting to discuss the Revenue Authority. Maybe that's one of the reasons why the Revenue Authority can come on stream. Because it is very unique. The positions in the Inland Revenue are very unique to only Inland Revenue. It's like the regional health authorities, we can take doctors and nurses and transport them into the public service. The revenue have tax officers and field auditors. There's no other position in the public service for those workers. What are you going to do with them? And we're not seeing anything being discussing or happening with those along those lines. So, you know, maybe that's why the Revenue Authority is not on stream.
One of the challenges that we raised during the debate is that the whole concept of having contract officers. When you are contracting officers in Inland Revenue, especially enforcement, and these people on 5 or 6 year contracts, whatever they end up, they are going to go to court on matters. What happens when their contract expires? You have a head whose the head is a contract officer, but his deputy is a public servant. that is going to create chaos in the system.
It is.
And those are the challenges we raised during the debate, some of the key things. They have, and you said customs and excise. Right now there's about 200 officers short in customs and excise. How is the revenue authority going to address that? Because I can tell you, I mean, in my own family business, we try to assist a school by bringing in some school bags, very, very local school bags. It landed in Trinidad on the 17th of July, and it cleared last week. Oh, listen, this couldn't be real. And every time you talk to the broker, you say, well, you know, I get an appointment for next week. So the appointment, why? Because there's not enough officers. And then you spoke about, you know, the public service and so on, in the issues of ease of doing business. But we need to move away in 2022 from this concept of Monday to Friday, 8 to 4. It is not working. So I'm not saying people ought to work after 4 for free. We have to get into a modern society where you work shift system, you have people can work on 3-tier shift systems, especially in ports, especially in customs and excise. Look at the fiasco that happened in immigration. The first port of landing for our tourists, and you spend 4 hours in a line waiting to clear immigration because there were only 3 officers. Why? Because the rest of them, because they didn't get paid overtime. That is not where we ought to be in 2022. And this is not being addressed. When you listen to Minister Hines, he couldn't be bothered. He couldn't be bothered. And those are the things that is going to keep impacting us in terms of ease of doing business. And lastly, you touched on the issue of the taxing regime. In 2017, there was an IDB survey that looked at the informal sector in Trinidad. And I think I have the data here. They estimated that 30% of our GDP comes from the informal sector. And why is it informal? This 30% of the people are unbanked. They have no banking information. Their money is in the bank, it is in a pillowcase or in a mattress somewhere. When you understand the power of money, every $1 gives you the power of $3. So whatever, that 30%, whatever is the value in money, that is times 3 that is out of circulation in the economy. That's the first thing. A lot of these people are not insured under the NIS system. So the NIS, which is already leaking, you know, it's hemorrhaging badly. They're talking about raising retirement age and so on. That unbanked, that informal sector, those things have to be addressed. And they're out of the tax regime on top of that. So the taxpayers are now paying the burden. 30% of the taxpayer, 30% of the citizenry, the working population, is paying the tax for the other 70%. The government must address these things. And when you address it in a very humane way as well, it cannot be in an aggressive form, where you come like you're stepping on the necks of the citizen. But all of these things have to be addressed in a real way. And for 7 years, none of these matters are being addressed. And that is thing that any progressive government, a progressive society, must have an adult discussion. There has been no adult discussion in this country in 7 years because of this dictatorial approach by this Prime Minister and this government. There is no conversation. I can tell you, as a sitting MP, in the last parliament, for every bill that comes that requires 3/5 majority, we extend our hand to the government and say, listen, these are areas that we are uncomfortable with. Can you meet us halfway? And 90% of the time they take the approach is our way or no way, right? And it has gotten worse in this parliament, that there is no middle ground. And I can tell you, every time our leader, our political leader, makes an attempt to say, well, look, let's discuss this. Ask the Attorney General. Well, we have a new Attorney General now. Poor fella, he in his own trouble by himself. But that is the way a progressive society ought to operate. And I can tell you, we in the opposition, we make every attempt to reach out to the government, and they refuse because they take the approach. They win alone, and they will lose alone. And that will not work for Trinidad and Tobago, unfortunately.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm getting a hint that we need to pay some bills from the technical team. But before we go to the break, MP Parray and myself, I think both of us and a couple other members of the opposition, but I know MP Parray, both him and I, we would have raised, in the debate, we had debated the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority bill. And I know both him and I, we were raising frontally with the government. Can you point us clearly to the issues that you're experiencing in the current BIR system, that we may be able to determine whether it can be plugged so that we can determine whether we need to have a whole overhauling? I mean, it's history now. The bill has been passed. Maybe it will be challenged in the courts. I don't know. My colleague and my brother, Mr. Taklal Singh, was supposed to come on studio tonight, but I don't know if he's around. the point is this, Richard and Bhushan, do you care to venture any thoughts on this Revenue Authority bill at this time? Is it something that, remember now we're going to have contracted officers, we're going to have a board. I think the board has been appointed maybe a few weeks ago, sorry. Do we expect to see anything significant that the population will benefit from with this implementation or the rollout of the implementation of the TTRA?
Before Bhushan chime in there, I just want to, in the last budget statement, the minister indicated that he was going to hire from the university accountants, young accountants, 100 and bring them in and train them and get them out there to improve tax collection. I have been part of the tax system for almost 30 years, and they have not revealed, they are just revealing that they are instituting a revenue authority, a name, but they have not revealed how they actually, and you are correct, how they're actually going to change the system and how they're going to improve tax collection and tax administration. In what way? And the government needs to reveal that. How are you going to improve? Are you going to hire more people to do audits? What are going to be the red flags to audit a company? How are you going to deal with those things? Because those things are happening already. What are you going to do? How are you going to expedite? I know for a fact that the BRR previously, over the last couple of years, would have instituted a system, a digital system that is to be effective, right? Now you can file your returns online. You could get information online. You could get a BRR number online, and that is what ease of business is about. You try to ease people into getting things done faster and quicker. But in terms of that revenue authority, I have a lot of colleagues who are working at the BIR, and they do not know their head to the foot with respect to how this revenue authority is going to operate. I'm talking about senior personnel. And these are people who have a lot of years service. What is going to happen to their service? What is going to happen to the personnel? Right? Are you going to hire everybody on contract, and then all these young professionals can't get a loan to build a house, all of them have to go and rent? Then the agency have to go and sell, how do you give rent properties to them? How are they going to survive? Come on board and tell people these things. These are practical things that people want to know. And these are hard questions that somebody had to ask at some point in time to this government. What are they going to do? What are the policies? How are they going to improve the revenue collection? Are you going to target the doublesman? All those people who are not into the system? What are you going to do? Are you going to register them? Are you going to run a course? Are you going to teach these people
But
they
how
need
that
to be
could
registered?
be the only stream of revenue the government is, but you have to pay your bills.
All right, so I take that cue from Senator John. So, gentlemen, we will pay those bills now. And when we return, of course, Bhushan, I will have some thoughts from Dr. Bhushan Singh, and of course, DP Jearlean John, Senator, the Honorable Jearlean John. So, gentlemen, let's pay those bills, and we will return in a few minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi, I am Stephen Ramkisoon, attorney at law.
And I'm Kyle Taklalsing, attorney at law.
We would like to invite you to our new program, Section 1, airing right here on Radio and TV Jagrati from 5 to 7 p.m. on Sundays.
We would like to have a discussion with you on our sovereign democratic state and issues affecting our democracy.
See you there.
Sitaram, the Honorable Political Leader of the United National Congress, Mrs. Kamla Prasad-Bissessar, SC MP, and the National Executive have confirmed that constituency executive elections will be held on Sunday, 18th September 2022. The Heart team wants your support.
Hi, I am Kishore Danta, contesting the chairmanship of the Heart team.
My name is Imam Rashid Karim, and I am contesting the position of Vice Chairman for the Shogunas West Executive under the Heart slate.
I am Andra Maharaj, and I am contesting the Education and Research Officer for the Heart slate.
I am Puran Ruku. I am contesting the position of Election Officer.
My name is Sunil Abdul. I am contesting the position for Youth Officer. I am Priya Mohammed, and I am contesting the Assistant Secretary for the Heart slate.
My name is Premchand Baldev.
and I'm contesting the post of secretary for the Heart.
Hi, I'm Ram Naresh Dautal. I'm contesting the position of PRO on the Heart slate.
My name is Jesse Jearlean, and I'm contesting the position of party organizer.
Hi, my name is Rushton Parray. I'm in the Heart slate. I'm going up for the post of position of treasurer.
Show your love for Shikwanis West. Show your love for the UNC. Vote the Heart team on Sunday, 18th September 2022 at the Charleville Presbyterian School.
Feeling exhausted and mentally tired and it's only midweek? Looking for that inspiration and motivation to keep you going? Then join me in the launch. Hey my friends, Ricky Ramlagan here with you, inviting you to join me on TV Jagrati, Wednesdays 4 to 4:30 in the afternoon for Lounging with Ricky, a brand new program focusing on the younger generation, human interest stories, life stories, and your midweek motivation. Lounging with Ricky, 4 to 4:30 on a Wednesday afternoon with repeats on Saturdays at 11 a.m. This Wednesday, we'll sit and chat with Shivana Ramchun, a young upcoming artist of Trinidad and Tobago. Launching with Ricky, only on TV Jagrati. We'll explore beauty in chaos.
Join me, Harold Nabry, every Saturday afternoon from 4 for the program Suhana Safar right here on your favorite station, TV Jagrati. Suhana Safar, a program that goes behind the scenes, relives the pleasant memories and enjoy the modern music. I will explore the various aspects of the Indian film industry and celebrate with the players of this vast industry. You will hear some ghazals, bhajans, semi-classical music, and we'll also look at the history and development of the Indian music world. That's Suhana Safar every Saturday from 4 p.m. right here on your favorite station, TV Jagrati.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us again with this program, Dollars and Cents, a true state of the economy. Of course, our panelists this evening, MP Parray, we have Senator Jearlean John, Dr. Bhushan Singh, Mr. Richard Ramkisoon, tax consultant, accountant, and we are here this evening. We are continuing the discussion. Just before the break, we were delving into the area of the Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority. And before I call on Dr. Bhushan Singh to be followed by Senator John to continue the discussion, I would like to let all of you know, of course, we under-catered the time estimate because the amount of knowledge that is being shared here, and even in the little break that we had, the discussion went in a different direction. And so I know there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge to be shared by these panelists. I will try my utmost best to have a follow-up program. But I suspect it will be after the budget and not before the budget. But I say this because we have limited time. We have just over half an hour to go. We will, of course, continue discussion, and at an appropriate time, we will probably take another break, and then we will have some calls. We will allow persons to call in, and therefore we will be able to field a few questions. I would not want viewers and listeners to lose the benefit of having these panelists address direct concerns. So without further ado, Dr. Bhushan Singh, I know I had called on you earlier, but we went to the break. What are your thoughts in terms of Trinidad and Tobago Revenue Authority against the backdrop of what we were just referring to, the fact that we now have a new bill, we have a new board, and we are hearing that there was some anticipation of hundreds of accountants coming on board, but yet we don't know what is taking place. We don't know, when this is going to come on stream, and what impact will it have moving further in terms of, the government's addressing shortfall in revenues, etc., and moving further beyond this budget, this fiscal year coming up?
Well, first of all, I too share a little concern with the operational continuity. If, a customs officer, it requires a lot of, training and experience, classification, and so on and so on, to really become proficient in the area. And so that operational continuity is a source of concern for me. But MP Parray mentioned earlier about the unofficial economy. And I want to say that I saw not too long ago unpublished data, this is unpublished data, that the unofficial economy might be approaching 50% or more of the official economy. And you have a number of reasons for that. One, you have a lot of people unemployed, and you have a lot of people who are underemployed. They might be working, but they can't make it difficult for them to make ends meet because inflation is so high. So they're forming part of the working poor. And to tie that back in with what we started the program around, the issue with the banking sector unbanked and the inability for many people to open a bank account. And even if you have a bank account and you want to open a next one for you too, it is you have to go in with a ECG and blood test and all this kind of thing in addition
Even
to
if you have a bank account and you want to bring in an additional signatory.
Yeah.
That is pressure.
A whole set of things that they ask you for. And this is causing, this is a source of leakage and in revenue, and also it is causing, because it is causing people to go to the unofficial economy, people to work in cash. And so you have people working in TT cash and you have people working in US cash. This is how come when people want US dollars in the black market, they know where to go to access it, and that's a source of leakage. And the unofficial economy, the more rigorous, the more onerous it is on the part of the banking system, is the more you're going to drive people into the unofficial economy. And that, again, is a major source of leakage in terms of tax revenue.
Well, I would like to call on Senator John, of course. I know, given we are discussing a lot of topics here tonight, and we are barely touching, the depths we would want to get into. But Senator John, what are your views in terms of, how the government, again, the Minister of Finance, the government, we have had instances, and I just throw this into the mix. MP Parray was, of course, he did mention train 1 to train 4. We have a situation of where we have the injection, and I don't want to use too much of political language, but we had the injection of about $250 million into train 1, when the signs were just obviously, it was patently clear, it was obscenely clear to everyone that, look, this was the end for train 1, and it was really a decision which stood at the feet of the government. And here it is, the government went and they pumped about $250 million from my recall. And therefore, when you look at the decisions, I know MP Parray spoke about the fact that government really, it is poor decision making. The question is whether they have the competence, 1. 2, even those who have the competence, whether they can actually implement. And if they're not in a position to implement, 3, who are they taking advice from to be able to get this thing going and to get the economy stimulated? So I want to hand over this broad perspective to Senator John, in whichever angle you may wish to take it, to give us some enlightenment as to your views.
Well, this government, unlike your program, MP, dollars and cents, they should be $20 and no cents, to be quite honest. Because, they take no advice. Now, it's not only that there must be competence, but you must have something in you called integrity, some kind of decency, that when you come to the public, you will come literally with clean hands. I mean, sometimes I might have to bob and weave. But this government, they make some of the most fundamental mistakes, a $250 million mistake, and then they lie all around it. The majors, as they called you, were saying, we are finished with this thing, this train 1. And it was there in the newspapers, thank God for Curtis Williams and yet they doubted it. And to this day, there's still trips in the world and pretending as if this thing, I don't know if they're going and resurrect it, I don't know if it's Lazarus, I don't know what they're going to do, but these people are just there lying to your face. And I think that's a very dangerous thing. Now, with all this talk, I'm hearing my colleague here with the small and medium enterprise talking about the troubles within the SME sector. And we know everybody feeling pain, but nobody speak up. That minister will read that budget on the 26th. And everybody say, what a wonderful budget. You know, we are like the emperor with no clothes. So there's also a responsibility on the part of the population. This population has gone to sleep. You understand? And then they will poke you in the eye and say, opposition not doing anything. I don't know what else we do except go upside down inside the Woodford Square. You understand? The opposition really works very hard. You know, but if it is civil society, you have something to lose. You're losing your business, your life, your dignity, your everything. But you're still out there and you prefer to lose that. That's not good enough. You understand? And so when this gentleman reads the budget, we must say, no, this cannot work. You understand? We know all the answers here, but we are not taking it further inside of all of these associations and what have you, because everybody is saying, yes, sir, yes, sir. So it's a major problem. As I said, this energy sector thing, it is good, but we should have been shooting off from that a long time ago. And just as I try to wrap up quickly, we have the port down by MP Parray. You know how wonderful that port is? That is what they met that. You know, it had some phase 2 and phase 3, but they met phase 1 or 2 down there. It's a fantastic piece of infrastructure. The Children's Hospital, I must take some praise for that. And so,
course.
And built within time and within budget. That tower that we converted from an admin building into a bed tower in San Fernando, again, 18 months. You know, these were fantastic pieces of infrastructure. And now we were going further with the vision because you had 40,000 square feet of space under that hospital in San Fernando. That was for training, to bring people from all over. Similarly, Port of Spain was the next one. The one we have in Couva. You know, imagine you keep a hospital locked. And not for pandemic use. That is nonsense. You know, you just find it's rubbish. The taxpayers' money. You know, what is the vision? You read up the plan. This was the vision. I agree with it, I disagree with it. But do something. You know, so they have made a lot of mistakes. And I'm telling you, if the country doesn't speak up, nobody has said riot yet or what have you. Speak up. This government will continue to fool us and insult our dignity. You know, I mean, it's good for us to come and talk about what they should be doing. They know what they should be doing. Since 1956, you think they don't know what they should be doing? They may so dotish. You understand? I think they will fool people for as far as they could. And until we come to the point where we, like England, we throw them Boris Johnson gone. Liz Truss and everybody taking better than she. She ain't lasting a year. You understand what I'm saying? Because they're about performance. You're not performing, you're gone. And that's the point. So I think, you know, it's a lovely panel. I appreciate everything, but I'm saying the government knows what they have to do. And part of it is 3 words. Work, work, work. Do your job. It is all there, written up for them from successive governments. Right? So
Dinesh, let me just add something very quickly. And Senator John said the government knows what they have to do. And I agree with that. You just don't know how to do it. Yeah. And we encourage the people of this country to open their voice, as I was saying, and remove them. Yeah. And let the people who could do the job. And I just want to use the example of the Galeota Point Phase 2 project. Phase 1 was completed. Phase 2 was supposed to dredge the harbour to bring deep hull vessels in. But that was supposed to be the Aberdeen, Scotland for the Guyana and Suriname expansion that they are facing now. Right now, 2 Saudi Arabian companies are building ports in Guyana, right? And our facility here is going to remain with just small vessels that are being used by NEC and so on. But beyond that, it was supposed to be able to, you know, be combined with an 80-hectare yard to do bunkering, to do, provide maintenance service for all international vessels. Panamax Class 2 vessels that are going to Europe, their last point before they hit the ocean to go to Europe would have been Trinidad and Tobago. We could have developed a whole new port city in Guayagua for the people of Mayara as well. And in conjunction with that, there was the conversation of the Lagandu Estate development for hotel and medical tourism, golf course. So you have a deep water harbor, cruise ships can dock in, a facility for them. We built the fire station in Mayaro. The conversation was why the partnership built this big hotel and whatever. But we had a highway that was supposed to from San Fernando to Mayaro to bring 10,000 people every weekend. An industrial port that's going to move millions of tons of cargo into Europe. We needed a fire station with all the facilities for industrial accidents, for a command center for the eastern seaboard for oil spills and disaster. The point that I'm making, when the People's Partnership, true, and I know Jearlean was part of that in UDCOT and so on, they developed a holistic plan built on philosophy. It wasn't hodgepodge of a list of items that the PNM had in their manifesto, and you turn that into government policy with no philosophy behind it. And this is what, you know, our approach is different. And perhaps the people of this country sees our approach as probably too academic, too laid back, and the PNM's approach while they was in opposition was rah-rah-rah and want to burn down Spain and so on. But at the end of the day, we have a different style, a different way of doing it. But I can tell you, the approach of building capacity and philosophy was what Jearlean and her team at UDCOT and so on had done. I remember they chastised Dr. Munilal in terms in the parliament for AC housing being too expensive under the partnership, right, compared to what they want to do now and go back into this old box type thing 2 feet apart. But you know what was Dr. Munilal's response is that the People's Partnership didn't want to build ghettos anymore. When we build a housing development, we want to put a pool, we want to put a lawn tennis court, we want to put a playground for the children, we want to put facilities that we don't build ghettos in this country anymore. That is a philosophical thinking and strategy of our government that is absent in this government, unfortunately. If anybody could counteract that with something, let me know, because I haven't seen any holistic philosophical development or anything by this government, and that is what is sorely missing.
I want to stick a pin on this, right? And maybe Senator John will chime in on this first. Now, I am relatively new to the electoral politics, but it doesn't mean I have not been following politics. When I was a teenager and you're looking at the politics and stuff, and, you know, budget is always something that you're looking forward to. This is a big thing, you know. The weeks leading up to the budget, you're hearing all the commentaries, you're hearing people saying the politicians are on the platforms, talking to the people, and yes, we are going to do this, and we're going to do this for you, and whatever. It is just something which is second, you know, it is after a general election, this budget day. And this is something that you would look forward to. On budget day, you would get the fiscal policy. And everybody accepted that, look, this was just the policy, and it is the bones with some flesh, but it will have to be fleshed out further in days to come. And the tradition has always been, well, the chamber will now entertain whoever is the Minister of Finance the day after the budget, and they would grill that minister to say, look, you said X, Y, and Z, but we haven't heard the figures behind this. How did you arrive at this sudden change in policy? Or how do you sustain this policy which was already there? And what can you tell us? Is it working or not, or whatever it is? My personal, you know, interaction with the politics now, and I'm saying this from my humble opinion, that what I have seen is I'm not seeing the Minister of Finance in the past few years being grilled like that in the days after the budget. So really what is happening then? Is it that the chamber has taken a different position with its government? Is it that the government is somehow justifying its actions in a different way? Or is it that we have now seen a different approach being taken? I know you say, Rushton, in terms of the partnership and now UNC, the philosophy is different. And we have a different way of speaking and doing things and conceptualizing things and implementing. What is really taking place? Because this is what I am seeing this government is getting away with. That the Minister of Energy, he is not justifying his policies. He is not saying in terms of the policies that were implemented yesteryear, what benefits has it brought the country. So what is really the Chamber's position when they have the Minister of Energy for that morning after the budget? What do they really ask the minister? And this comes to you, Senator John. Is it that, as you say, they butter up the minister and say, oh, everything is all well and good?
Emperor, look at your clothes so fine.
But what is causing this?
It's about dollars and cents. It's about dollars and cents. They know this is such a vicious government that should they criticize this thin-skinned government, I mean, broken up individual, they ain't getting no Forex. It's as simple as that. Your business going through. You understand? There is no way you could criticize that minister and you would not go. Remember, you could call the banks, right, and tell any managing director, oh my, this is an open system, and it's an open closed system. It's open and inviting for all who in. We spoke about that earlier. You understand? Our good colleague talking about, they don't know where these Forex is that they're talking about, that is available, but you can't get. Because they have a means test. Remember, they like to use this means test. And it means, I don't want to politicize your panel, but it has its meaning. You understand? So they will go and tell him how beautiful it is. And they're under squeeze. They're not getting that VAT. They need the VAT. The child has to go to school. They are telling them, you're foolish. You wanted to send your child to a school that is not the University of the West Indies, which in many instances people can't even pay the fees because people have so much stress and pressure. And the banks are really, they're not even interested because they are making supernormal profits, whether you're dead or you're alive. They just don't, nobody cares. The system has become so hard, it does not work. It works for nobody but those who fit that means test. Now that is all. Right? So they go and they butter him up. You look and see. And then they come out and ball how hard things are.
Well, let me ask the technocrats, very technically, the technocrats on the panel. Dr. Singh, what is your view in terms of, are we holding the Minister of Finance properly accountable to the population in terms of year after year, the fiscal policies that are being suggested? I'm not saying implemented, suggested.
Well, I want to be open here and not to bash anybody, but I want to say that generally when the population of Trinidad and Tobago hears the budget, the average person listens to what went up, what went down, and not fully understand the implications of a lot of the policy decisions. And that is something that the population as a whole needs to get active. Senator John was talking about civil society needs to get involved, and this is the perfect opportunity, understanding some of these policies in the budget, because the budget is a policy statement where you want to go, and understanding the implications of it, and to better having that understanding, you could then better interrogate the Minister of Finance on, what is working, what is not working. Understand the issue of debt, understand the issue of this. When we hear about the budget and you hear, this ministry gets so much, that ministry gets so much, this ministry gets so much, and, a lot of people don't realize that 93% of the expenditure is actually for recurrent expenditure, so where the investment is coming from, right? So when, the figures sound nice on the surface, but you have to delve behind, and that is where the real interrogation would come. And it goes back to the issue of economic diversification too. If most of your expenditure is on recurrent expenditure, what driving the diversification effort, right? How are you going to pay the VAT and tax refunds? 93% of your expenditure is you're going to borrow money to pay back. You're going to borrow to pay back our next debt. Well,
let me see if I bring in Richard on this as well, and I want to thank Bhushan, of course, for that open view. Richard, I know year after year you hear that the SMEs can access FCB loans and NETCO grants and rental grants and what. These are things that you hear that they should be available to them. Is it that, what is proposed, I use that as an example, is it that what is proposed for SMEs in successive fiscal policies, one, are they truly receiving, are they the beneficiaries of those fiscal policies? And if they are or if they are not, the question that flows from it is then what is the situation with SMEs? Who is going to champion those kinds of issues against Minister of Finance who comes and he just talks for 3 hours and he says bare nonsense. Maybe I should say he speaks bare details, be a little bit more objective with this. And what is to take place? What can we expect different this time around, if anything?
Well, in the first place, I want to hit him a direct question. When he's reading his budget, in the parliament, I want him to identify in his budget statement what fiscal policies that he's going to bring to deal with what situation. Is he going to deal with a recession? Is he going to deal with inflation? What are you dealing with? Are you going to bring expansionary policies? All the budget statements, most of the population does not know what the policies are targeting, right? A technocrat might say, well, look, he's raising tax. They are cutting government spending, so we are doing contractionary policies. But does this economy need that at this point in time, right? Do we need that, or do we need to expand expansionary policies? We're not seeing that. He needs to identify those things. In terms of SMEs, I mean, if you look at the last budget, I just have a little document here. of the highlights of the 2021 budget. SMEs, 5% reduction in tax for people who are exporting over $500,000. How much people fall in that category? That is like you're giving somebody a little sweetie and say, take that and appease yourself for that. You're not dealing with the real problems. The real problems that SME facing is accessibility to the banking sector to get, or other financial institutions to improve their cash flows to get overdraft, right? The stringent and rigorous requirements are so onerous on these small businesses that they cannot access. Yes, they have a policy where you could go to the banks and you get an interest-free loan. But when you look at the paper is maybe 5 times this for you to qualify for that. And the SMEs, most of them, 90% of them, do not access it.
Well, I'm not a cut across, but I just want to say one thing. The interest-free loan from the bank is a loan, and the government is providing the security.
Yeah.
So really and truly, what that normal lending criteria applies. It is not to say that, you know, it was open. And you mentioned the issue of NEDCO and you know, NEDCO loans and so on, but not too long ago it was published, and the delinquency rate at NEDCO was above 60%.
And somebody had to ask the question, why?
Right, and I'm going to answer that question, why. And the issue with some of these SMEs is not just about giving them access to financing facility, but they need some type of, you know, incubator type training and so on, some type of, to understand how to manage money. When they get a loan, that money is not theirs. They have to pay back that money, and how to treat with it and so on, and you know, to deal with that. Because if you're giving out loans and the delinquency rate is 60%, it means, you know,
it's not a loan.
It's not, well, it's not a loan, but it's not.
Let me just continue 1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't announced the numbers yet, but I understand we have a call online. Just for those who may not have gotten through before on previous programs, tonight is the night. 663-1027. I repeat, 663-1027. We will take calls on this line, but because we have this caller, technical team, can we send this call through? Hello, good evening. Do we have that caller? Hello, good evening. Technical team, we are not hearing anything on the phone. Hello, good evening. Bhushan, let's continue with your point whilst they sort out the technical team. 663-1027, so we will take the calls now as we near the end of the program. Bhushan?
So the issue here with delinquency and so on, you know, you can't just give out the money like that. It must come, you know, you have to have some type of criteria on how you evaluate the SME and so on in terms of, you know, carrying out the proper training. And it comes back to the other aspect of it. You could have a budget of 50 billion, 75 billion, whatever the figure it is, but the efficiency of the spend, allocating money to a ministry, allocating money to a program is one thing, but the efficiency of the spending must come with some objective. If it doesn't come with that objective, then it was just wasted money, right? So whether it be for, you know, SMEs, whether it be for you know, how are you going to deal with this? And the other major issue, we have an energy windfall right now, but when that energy windfall subsides, which it would, where are we going to earn foreign exchange? Where is the economic diversification?
Okay,
I think we have a caller.
Have a call. Let's see if we get it this time. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening. You are live on air.
Yeah, good night to all the members in the panel.
Yes, good evening.
Have, to talk about like the prices at this pump. People say that the prices will raise, and from my knowledge so far, it's beyond 100 per barrel, and obviously this would cause the gas prices to also raise, right? And therefore the prices of commodities and transport, etc., also increases. So how much more can the citizenry bear when the cost of living keeps us scaling like that? Thank you.
Okay, so I don't think we heard the beginning of the question, but Rushton, you care to venture any thoughts on this to start with?
I think I gathered what he was asking in terms of the skyrocketing price of oil and the upcoming increases in the price of fuel and the impact it has on the overall cost of living for the individuals. My response to that is simple. Look, all over the world, this is a phenomenon that is happening, right? In 2016, the Minister of Finance came and he said, look, we're going to reduce the subsidy since 2016. And we're going to do it gradually, and they riot yet, and we do it a second time, and they riot yet, we do it a third time. He's come again and he's spoken about putting a cap on the subsidy to $1 billion. But the question I have is, what has the government done since 2016 to deal with improving the efficiency of public transport as an alternative? What have they done to improve the road infrastructure? So the money to spend on the mechanics of our vehicles, that extra cost to maintain these vehicles, that can be used in terms of paying a bit more at the pump without impacting your disposable income. The state has done nothing since 2016, knowing fully well, because they talked about it in 2016, that at some point in time they were going to remove the entire subsidy. The Russian-Ukraine conflict only expedited it now, right? But since 2016 we knew. What measures, 1, 2, or 3, did the government do to take the alternative, public transport? I can leave my vehicle home. I can use public transport to get to work. The road infrastructure, to reduce the cost of operating my vehicle. Nothing. So together with that, together with having to pay high prices on maintenance of your vehicle, we're now going to pay more at the pump. So the cost of living is going to definitely skyrocket. There has been no conversation from the Minister of Trade concerning how do we use the taxing regime to deal with taxes, import taxes, taxes in terms of customs duty and so on. Tax on freight, CIF. The Guyanese government made a decision that they are going to do CIF based on the pre-pandemic charges for a container, not the 20,000 and 24,000 euros that we are paying for containers today. So my response to the person who called was that, yes, we are going to see a jump in the cost of living for the average man on the ground. Prices of food is going to be impacted, but the state has a responsibility of acting, which they have failed to do. And we must remember that at polling day, on election day, whether it comes next week, next month, next year, or 2025, we must never forget that their inaction will cause what is going to happen in this country in the next couple of months.
Yes, thank you, MP Parray. Anyone wants to make any additional comments?
Well, the issue of all of these taxes and so on, the state is in a tight position, and well, the prices of the high energy prices kind of gave them a little buffer. But when energy prices were low, remember, oil went into negative territory in the not too distant past. The state was faced with the issue of how are they going to get revenue? And they couldn't get it from the energy sector. And then it shifted. It shifted in terms of, well, we're going to have to look at a more efficient tax regime, introducing new taxes, removing subsidies and so on. So that in itself, was a signal, well, look, the cost of living is going to increase. Added to that, we have now the Ukraine war, and we have a lot of imported inflation. And that imported inflation means that, apart from the taxes, your money could only stretch so far, right? So that has further added a burden to the population and to businesses. And this is how come you have unemployed, but you also have underemployed who are working, but they form part of the working poor.
Thank you, Bhushan. I think we have another caller. Hello, okay. Good evening. You're live on air.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead, ask us your question.
To everyone on the panel, and right. So, my question is directed to MP Parray, and it has to do with digital transformation within the last year, which was read in 2021. So far, really, how far have we really come into this digital era, right? What measures have been put in place for digital transformation and the infrastructure of digital transformation so far? Because, I mean, as Mr. Ramkisoon said earlier, right, we have to fill out a form and wait so long for it to be dealt with. Sometimes no reply is even given, right? So, in terms of that, how far have we come, right? Because within the next 5 years, I really dare to wonder where this ministry would reach if this is the pace, right? Because, I mean, within the last month, I realized that it took almost a year for the website for digital transformation to be put up, right? So with that, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, your call, and thank you very much for your question. Before I direct it as requested to MP Parray, how far have we really reached with digital transformation? I recall in the last budget, or sometime around the last budget, that MP Munilal asked the question directly, what is the address of the Ministry of Digital Transformation? And recently I was lucky and privileged to be on the Senator Arnold Roberts' traditional program, Douglas Politics. And he was taking a little jab at Senator Bacchus, saying that, Bacchus, you're on the wrong side, boy. You need to come over on the other side. But I say this in political jest, but MP, a more informative response to that question.
Yeah, definitely. I can tell you, Senator Bacchus notified the country a couple of days ago that we will not be anywhere close to the transformation we need until after 2025. So that should answer the gentleman's question right there. But it goes further than that. When under the People's Partnership, and I must reflect on the good work of the People's Partnership, and forgive me for your listeners that I keep going back there. We put 17,000 laptops every year in a child's school bag from 2010 to 2015. But the laptops were not just for the child. The laptops was to send a message, a learning opportunity for the entire family. And by doing that, the alternate sideline approach from the Telecoms Authority was to push broadband services into every community. And the idea here of putting a broadband link in every home was the whole concept of getting these after 5 years, of 100,000 laptops in homes that would not traditionally have any ICT equipment. What you found is that when the government changed, they scrapped it, they canceled that, they slowed the progress down. And I must tell you, under the Manning administration, the concept of development was to put a waka in every home. 2010, we said, no, we want to put a laptop in every home, a computer in every home. That was the start of the transformation that would have taken some time. In our 2020 manifesto, in terms of our national transformation policy, we spoke of intelligent municipalities, where we would have had the decentralization of government services into your municipality. And when you combine equipment, broadband internet access into your home, decentralization of government services in your municipality, you would have had a natural progression of having to use ICT services. And you would have been covered. You know how much adults afraid to go in an ATM machine? Yeah. They're afraid because they don't know what to do. They're afraid to press the button because they're afraid to break something. The purpose of these laptops under the People's Partnership going into homes was to create an environment of comfortability, using electronic equipment. And when the child sits to do something, the mother, the father, the grandmother, the sibling may have come across, and the learning curve would have extended. Government changed in 2015, that entire thing collapsed. And that has, it collapsed, and it collapsed and continue to collapse just like this government at the end of the day. So to answer the caller's question is that we are going nowhere very far. And it is because of, and I mean, I think the Minister of Education says she's going to give 7,000 laptops now. Yeah. Little too late. So we have some time to wait, my young friend, and it's going to be a while. So don't hold your breath.
All right. I think I know we have some calls, but unfortunately we will have to go straight to closing comments. Richard, let me ask you to give as briefly as possible some closing comments.
I'm very interestingly awaiting this budget to see what he presents in terms of policies for small and medium-sized enterprises, and I will, whatever he presents, I will delve into it and try to see if we could come up. Hopefully, the small, medium-sized enterprises will benefit from it.
Bhushan?
I too look forward to the budget presentation. I look forward to dealing with the long-term issue of economic diversification, how we're moving away from the energy sector into a diversified economy, and how we are going to deal with this Forex issue in the short, medium, and long term.
Thank you. MP Parray.
I am very much interested in seeing how the $8 billion in windfall is going to be spent. I understand $4 billion may go towards paying back pay, which technically is not a bad thing. For putting money into the economy is always a good thing. It's the spending power. Small businesses, community businesses going to benefit from the spending of that money. My big query is, what are we going to do with the other $4 billion? What investment opportunity will the state make in driving the diversification process? Are we going to use pieces of that money to finish the Moruga agro-processing plant? That's 5 white elephants down there. Are we going to use some of that money down on that side? Are we going to use some of that money to complete the Galeota Point facility, which can take some of the marine expansion with the FSOPs in Guyana to get these vessels back into Trinidad and Tobago waters, and we're going to earn U.S. currency from these vessels being docked here and in Point Lisa and so on. So, interestingly, I look forward to hearing the Minister of Finance. I look forward to rubbishing half of the nonsense he's going to say, and very interested to see where that $4 billion in investment capacity is going. So, we look forward to his contribution on the 26th.
Thank you, MP Parray. And yet again, I leave the best for last. Senator John, your closing comments.
I really wish I could have bought a better close, but I want to tell everybody here, you'll hear none of those things. This is not a serious government. No, they're not serious. I don't even contemplate how you all could be expecting those things, because this will be the 8th budget, and we have heard none of that during the last 7. And I think they are going to just continue along their merry way, trying to lie their way out of every issue, and really not put this government. I mean, the lights are on by a truck on the plank there waiting on the driveway, but they are totally disinterested. Our Prime Minister is happily in the US somewhere out there.
Thank you, Senator John. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, I want to thank profusely Senator Jearlean John for taking time to be here on this program. This program really was scheduled to be a different forum, and we had to change that owing to certain circumstances. But nonetheless, we didn't want to lose this opportunity. I thank her on short notice, making herself available. MP Parray coming all the way from Mayaro, and I know he is here, joining studio with his beloved wife. Nalisha is here, so I want to thank her as well. MP, you do have a very beautiful chauffeur, right? So, and a very reliable one at it. So I want to thank her, Nalisha. MP Parray, thank you so very much for joining us on this program. I hope to do more of these with Member of Parliament for Mayaro. My good friend Richard, always giving his time to ensuring that, you know, not only the Chaguanas Chamber is properly represented, not only Chaguanas businessmen, not only SMEs, but giving of his knowledge, you know, as a tax consultant and accountant, and always prepared to break down some of the bigger thoughts and to get, you know, let people know how it is going to affect them on their own level, their individual level. Likewise, Dr. Bhushan Singh, despite his, you know, own commitments in lecturing and his profession, he takes the time to give of his expertise, his vast expertise in areas of finance and, of course, these fiscal policies and legislative infrastructure that we ought to see implemented, and even what, you know, in this case, the TTRA, what is going to happen. So I want to thank Bhushan. I want to thank management of Jagrity. I would like to thank the Secretary General of the SDMS, Sanatan Dharma Mahasabha. Whenever we call and we say that we would like to have one of these programs, it is only subject to a religious function. So once there is no religious function, you know, taking place, so we just concluded the Ganesh Utsav. Now we're in Pitri Paksh. The Secretary General will give way and subject to some bills being paid, of course, but he would usually give way. So I want to thank him. I want to thank the technical team. I want to thank Kyle Taklal Singh, who is here in studio tonight. He is always assisting, of course, with the putting together of these programs and bringing some of the finer thoughts that we want to bring forward. I want to thank constituents of Chaguanas West. I want to thank you, viewers and listeners. I want to thank Vishnu, Kun and Archie, those who support us by way of, the Douglas stream. They, of course, have been very amenable towards sharing this program tonight, and so I want to thank them. I thank all of you, ladies and gentlemen. We try our best to bring, what are the contemporary issues in terms of finance and economy and how it affects you, and we will certainly try our very best to have a post-budget discussion. Hopefully, we will have that one for 2.5 hours. I am certain on that occasion it still will not be enough time, but hopefully we'll be able to entertain some more questions. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Have a very good night. To my panelists, I want to tell them safe return to their homes, to their destinations, and Sitaram to all of you. Thank you very much.
Sitaram, I am Sharvani Sukhai, inviting you to be a part of my television sensation, Bollywood.
आपका धर्म, आपका स्टेशन, टीवी जागृति।
Look elegant this Diwali. Visit Fab India Expo, opposite Medford Gas Station, Chaguanas. Get one-of-a-kind bride and groom outfits with all accessories, Indian and Brazilian jewelry. It's time to decorate your home. We've got pure teak hand-carved furniture, new appliances and kitchenware. Pure cotton beds and curtains also available. Get all you need at the one-stop shop, Fab India Expo, located opposite Medford Gas Station, Chaguanas. We're open daily, including weekends and holidays, from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Be sure to check us out.
The Mid-Center Mall Christmas Flea Market is now open for bookings. Call 340-6565 to book your booth now.
Jai Sitaram. Pitra Paksh, Fortnight of the Ancestors, is a 15 lunar day period in the Hindu calendar occurring in the dark half Krishna Paksh of the lunar month of Ashwin, September-October. Hindus pay homage to their ancestors, Pitris, especially through the gifts of food and Tilanjali. When the legendary donor, Karna, died in the epic Mahabharata war, his soul transcended to heaven, where he was offered gold and jewels as food. Karna inquired from Yam the reason for serving gold as food. Yam mentioned he had donated gold all his life but never donated food to his ancestors in Shraddh. To make amends, Karan was permitted to return to Earth for a 15-day period so that he could donate food and water in their memory during the period set aside. Vishnu Puran mentions the souls of 3 preceding generations of one's ancestors reside in Pitrilok, a realm between heaven and earth. This realm is governed by Yam, who takes the soul of the departed from earth to Pitri. When a person of the next generation dies, the first generation shifts to the heaven and unites with God. Thus, only the preceding 3 generations in Pitrilok are honored at the Mahalaya Shraddh rites. According to the Markandeya Puran, those who worship the Pitris are blessed with children, long life, strength, and fulfillment of worldly desires. During Pitra Paksh, customary undertakings are Tilanjali, offerings of water, tulsi leaves, flowers, black-tailed sesame seeds and white rice. Pindadan, offerings of pinda rice ball, usually in the company of a purohit, pandit. Annadan, gifts of food consisting of traditional vegetarian food and drink. Homam, havan, consisting of kheer, sweet rice, ghee, black sesame seeds and honey. Hindus refrain from the following undertakings in Pitru Paksh: construction of any kind. This also includes refraining from buying the raw materials for the same. Auspicious occasions like yearly pujas, marriage ceremony vivaha, yagyupavit, housewarming ceremony pravesh, engagements and all other religious events. Purchases of any kind of property, land or vehicles. Nitya Karam, our everyday undertakings, continue unabated. Jai Sri Krishna, Sanatan Dharma, Mahasabha, Pandits Parishad.
Do you love bargains? Then come to Monroe Road for the grand opening of the Festival of India Expo. Step into Alag stores for the BOGO deals on Indian clothes, jewelry and puja items. Buy one, get one half price. Buy two, get one free. Our vendors are filled with Navratri specials. Check Mr. Darren, Mr. Khan and Raghu Maggie Fashion. This Navratri, the big bargains are back from September 25th to October 24th at the Festival of India Expo, Monroe Road Flyover West. Vendors, book your spaces now for Navratri and Diwali. Call 745-1369.